Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Hearts of Iron 4 as Germany number 12. We just lost those 10 units which were left more or less abandoned in Iceland, which is really awful. We are going to just charge on into Norway right now. The Swedes just capitulated, so all of their forces are gone. Now it's just the Norwegians by themselves with maybe one or two allied units just kind of rolling about. So hopefully the war will be relatively quickly won. You'll notice there is just a much smaller group of enemy forces than there were even a moment ago. We are just rushing straight over headlong at all of their victory points, as has been my method of fighting since Hearts of Iron 3, and continues to work decently well. With the Swedes, though, we have found out that it does appear you do need to take over a portion of their actual nation itself. And we also go ahead and pick a research tree for our industry, which basically will hopefully allow us to switch production more quickly, more efficiently, and get up to speed better in that way. Alright, so that all said and done, we have taken all of their victory points, and it looks as though we still have a quarter of the way to go, which is just going to be done by having our tanks drive up and down the roads of Norway, or just in through the countryside. I'm not really sure just how well developed their territory was at this point in their history. We also have just overwhelming air superiority all over the channel, which is really great, and there's not all that much else that needs to be said about that. We're also just kind of driving through the Norwegian countryside, even still, hoping to bring this war to a swift close, and there they go, they have capitulated. There are still islands of enemy control, like the British and other areas, which is a bit unfortunate, however not really anything that we can do about it. We also go ahead and create ourselves a new armored group. Since we did just lose those 5 armored elements, we go ahead and get a medium tank group. We put all of this fancy new artillery pieces, heavy artillery. We go ahead and take those off because they really slow down the formation, and we just build up self-propelled rocket artillery and a few mechanized divisions. So that is going to be the new nucleus of our panzer corps, or at least hopefully we'll have that by the time we go and actually invade. We also go ahead and build a brand new entirely mechanized corps, which is going to also be filled with rocket artillery. Previously we have been avoiding building artillery pieces since we've had such an advantage with our close air support. I'm not entirely certain how much room for air cover we'll have in the new world once we actually go and invade. So we go ahead and start shifting our production a bit. We're going to have to obviously build medium tanks now, as well as mechanized forces and rocket artillery, none of which we've been building thus far. So we set up a rather large group of production lines for them, and we don't have the industry ready for that, so what we're going to have to do is cut off our production of air forces, and that's not actually that big of a deal since we just have such an outrageous number of planes in development. I believe we even have something like 6,000 fighters just waiting, doing absolutely nothing. But there's no real reason for us to take them out of reserve right now since they're not actually needed whatsoever. We should probably step up our production of naval bombers in order that we may hopefully clear the seas of the American Navy, at least near us, and maybe even strategic bombers if we can get close enough to actually make them effective. Well, I mean, admittedly they are strategic bombers, so hopefully we won't have to get too close. Still though, I imagine it would be better to have them than not. And I believe since it is now 1943, we can really at any point once we get the research slots open, go ahead and begin research into nuclear weaponry and rocketry, which will hopefully be able to combine into getting some early form of intercontinental ballistic missile, especially since we haven't actually developed the technology for our strategic bombers as of now. Although we could possibly make some sort of variant that just has a lot of extra range, I imagine it would be grossly inefficient to try to strategically bomb the United States. So with that all in mind, we're probably not going to do that anytime soon. We are going to reassign naval bombers to various areas in an attempt to just really do damage to the American Navy. I'm not sure how quickly they can produce their forces. All I know for sure is that we really want to sink as much as we can, as quickly as we can, in preparation for an invasion of the American continents. How exactly that invasion is going to look, I do not quite know at this moment. It could really go one of several ways. We are also going ahead and picking up various other motorized units, and we're just getting them all together to form armies out of. We are also now re-invading Iceland, finally, after quite some time. Now the ultimate objective there is obviously just to take Iceland and use it as a base for further operations. We might also invade Brazil, get all of our forces ready for that, all the ones from our previous Scandinavian efforts, and try to just sail over and hopefully take care of that relatively easily. We also finished our rocketry research, so we can begin building rocket test sites, which will later on be very nice. Admittedly, right now they won't have anything like the range they need. So we probably aren't going to win this war through wonder weaponry or strategic bombardment. We're probably going to have to win this war through those new armored and mechanized forces that we're getting together. We've also managed to take over Iceland, so now we're going to move on over to Greenland afterwards. Liberia capitulated, so that's great news. We are winning the war in Africa, despite the fact that it's going rather slowly. It doesn't really matter all that much, all things considered. It is a nice front that we can just kind of move forward in when nothing else is happening anywhere else. We also have a lot of notifications about various battles which have gone on, or which have just generally occurred. And the gist of all of that is that we are actually doing some, maybe not great damage, but a bit of damage consistently to the American Navy. We also finished our final transport research, so we will have really no debuffs to our naval planning abilities, and we can transfer giant armies over across the oceans. We just have to take control over the seas, and it looks as though we do have control over at least a small portion of the sea, over to Brazil at least, if nothing else. We also do have a weirdly large amount of panzer units in Africa. I don't use them for anything this time around, however, just doing the narration right now, I'm thinking that we could probably make an entirely African mechanized force and use that to invade Brazil. Or really just do one of several things. We also begin building up our nuclear reactors in key Soviet cities, or key former Soviet cities, as well as rocket test sites, since we are basically done with all of the other production demands that we need. We set up another invasion route. We just have so many forces we can invade basically anywhere we want, which is quite nice. While we wait, I go ahead and check the scales for the efficiency of our fighters. It looks as though we have lost considerably more fighters than our enemies, basically wherever we actively fought them. However, as a testament to our rather great production, we've been able to just win control of the air anyway. And with that control, we were then able to just seize their countrysides. So it doesn't really matter all that much if it was a longer, harder fought road to take control over the airs, since we did manage to do it in the end. Alright, we also discovered, to our horrible chagrin, that it looks as though we won't actually be able to use these naval invasions. The reason for that being we don't have control over all of the seas, and the game is requesting, or basically demanding, that we actually know what's going on in all of the seas that we want to send our entire motorized army through. Admittedly, that does make a bit of sense, so I can't really complain too much. Unfortunately, that does mean that we wasted something like 45 days planning invasions that will just not happen. So it looks as though the Greenland plan is going to be the more successful option. We accidentally put all of our armored units into one group, which now puts it far over the capability of its general to actually maintain and control. So that's a little unfortunate. We'll just use that to destroy Portugal, and then from Portugal try to launch our new invasion. Hopefully that will work decently well. We can also try to invade in the basically just northernmost bit of America. So we get all of those units. We've taken over Greenland. We're going to move our other forces over to Portugal while we really just to get them all there. The AI seems to have a better capability of using infrastructure to move forces than players do, since it seems as though players would have to click it on every province, which is a minor inconvenience to say the least. We also are just really going heavily with this naval bomber plan. Japan declared war on Uruguay, which is kind of odd, but I'm happy. I hope they actually do something about that. And we are at war with Brazil, because we did declare on them when I thought that the naval invasions would actually be feasible. With that all said and done, we are still pressing forward in Africa. We are making some progress, which is nice. It's a rather slow-going affair, yet it doesn't really need to be quick. At this point, attrition is just generally on our side. Unless they come up with wonder weapons and use them against us in some horrible way, we're going to win the war. I don't really doubt that anymore. The real question is, how difficult is it going to be to get there? And that just remains to be seen. I imagine once we actually get forces onto the American continents, whether it be the North or the South, we will pretty quickly move forward to just dominate the area. The question is, how are we going to get forces there? Can we do it in a way that maintains the cohesiveness of our armies? And really just, Canada only has one division. That's what I just found out by searching through that. So if we land in Canada, we're probably fine until the Americans flow on up and attack them back, or attack us back, which is probably enough time that we could get a decent foothold. The Portuguese, we have a massive amount of forces near. We just have to wait for our war goal to finish justifying, and hopefully we will then have control over the seas enough that we can launch our invasion of Brazil. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Hopefully in the next episode we will begin these invasions for real.